Good evening. I'm Patrick Donnelly, director of the Frost Place Poetry Seminar, and I welcome you to our first night of faculty and guest readings. Thank you to everyone on Facebook and in the Zoom room for joining us. Maudelle Driskell, our executive director of the Frost Place, usually does our introductions, but she's on the program tonight, so I'm deputized. Maudelle is my boss at the Frost Place. She has an incredible skill set to do this job and is an amazing colleague to do it with. She's also a dear friend, and she and I have seen each other through some interesting times. Remember the well-known curse, "May you live in interesting times"? We've also shared happy times and even a few triumphs. There's nobody I'd rather have at my back or as company on an adventure. Maudelle is also a deeply serious poet and a fine poet, which are adjacent qualities but not identical. She and I are in a peer workshop together, and there are no close readings like the ones Maudelle gives. She misses nothing. And she's invested in helping you realize your poems as much or maybe more than you are yourself, especially if you're feeling doubts. This quality also makes her a superb teacher, as many of you know, and as you'll all experience when she gives her presentation on Tuesday morning. I deeply admire Maudelle's tough and tender and startling poems. On a monthly basis, I get to see her new drafts. So in addition to her wonderful book, Talismans, which came out in 2014 from Hobblebush Books, there will be more beautiful new poems coming down the pipeline from her. Please welcome Maudelle Driskell.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and thank everybody for being here. It's really nice to hear that I'm Patrick's boss. That's not something I feel like most of the time. We collaborate on just about everything. And it's also wonderful working with him and working this week with Martha Rhodes and Allison Joseph, who I can't wait to hear read. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for the rest of the series. I'm going to read some new poems tonight and some old poems, and probably some poems that are not quite ready for prime time, but I'll leave that to you. Just don't tell me which ones you think they are in case I think they're done. Mistakes you might make in Spanish, but probably wouldn't in English. Order a soap sandwich with cheese. Confuse fingernails and nipples, asking the manicurist to smooth, moisten, and paint your nipples just right, pearl white, to go with your scarf, of course. Reminder to leave them long enough to play the guitar, at least on the right hand. Then announce formally that you're pregnant because of these mistakes. Request a sturdy homosexual or a duck to raise your car because your portly bald tires encountered a sustained prick and are just hissing themselves to death. I hope that at least some of you are Star Wars fans. This is to go forth as a luminous being, and it's interspersed with quotes from Yoda. It begins with this epigraph. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Yoda, The Empire Strikes Back. The Jedi nesting dolls are smooth and fit together perfectly. Hollows filled with hollows, rounds filled with rounds, impossibly long necks, supraorbital ridges, ears like Anaheim chilies, flanges with all the fixings smooth, represented two-dimensionally in shiny enamel. The eyes know, but the hands do not. Round to round, head to head, tail to tail, in a concentric sequence, a gyre of gimbaled supragalactic super philosopher pocket-sized nesting ninjas. The smallest is largest. a stretched Yoda containing Obi-Wan, Fister, and Skywalker. They all fit in my pocket, and I can look inside. Much to learn you still have, my old Padawan. This is just the beginning. I can look inside and find nothing there, simply a set of hollows filled with the diminished self, orbits of belly and back that rattle together when shaken, hungry and hollow, within and within and within, so close but so lonely. Lonely as the fingers of the right hand for the right elbow. Lonely as the sun for its own light. Lonely as being that thing and longing for that same thing. Talismans. Well, this poem, when I wrote it, I thought it was an absolute flight of fancy. However, a boarding house from Tennessee called me, and they actually have Elvis's wart, and bought a signed copy of this poem to go on the wall. It's called the Loudermilk Boarding House. This is Talismans. At the flea market across from the Commerce Speedway, you can buy Elvis relics in Ziploc bags with masking tape labels. The napkin smeared with peanut butter and banana grease, the pocket comb with a single strand of black hair twined in its teeth, rhinestones dandruff from the white Las Vegas jumpsuit, all point with the insignificance of dogs that have already treed the raccoon toward the masterpiece of this collection, Elvis's wart. Showcased under the glass of an overturned jelly jar, impaled on a bright yellow balled stick pin stuck in a cork, the wart, looking for all the world like an albino raisin, seems to hover, bound only by that yellow globe above it. That's the last vestige of the king, only $500, you know. Each cell has everything that you need to make a whole person. You could clone Elvis from that wart. A crowd gathers in awe, imagining the million tiny possibilities risen before their eyes. Something simple happens. Devotions, beliefs, strong through some accident of conductivity, too much salt, too little salt in the cell spaces of the neuroconductors. Some brief spell of ball lightning rolling through our brains, quickening an interest in the local auto mechanic, sending us on crusades, giving us the idea for Velcro, telling us to kill our wives, leading us forward in blind faith, making us hear the word and hope that unlike steak, we move on to glory. Seeing for the first time the glistening strings of dew and moonlight strung all along the spider's tender lines, leaving us shaken in the divine smell of strawberries. My newer work is going along a couple of lines. The first is the trans experience as a trans person in the United States that grew up in a generation where that never happened. I've been writing quite a bit about it. And the second is corollary pieces between what it was like to be around in the AIDS epidemic and then to have that echoed by COVID. The next bit of the reading will be a bit of the trans poetry. For the boy I never was. The men lit the fires in the corners of the field. When Rob was old enough, they gave him a can and a torch and set him to burning. It starts like this: the division, labor, knowledge, scars, and calluses, the post between grandfather and father, beers, fire, suit-gilded faces, alchemic and red light. But Rob dangled his legs from the tailgate holding an old Milwaukee. He would not drink, nor when it was done would he walk the fields passing the animals as black as the ground, twisted among the burnt stubble, as in the stories he heard them tell of war. Rob makes his family and life with other men. They have the licenses to all the secrets. Now, only the women are left to burn the fields, and we don't know why the coyotes have come back. Our dogs take up with them and hunt, mate, probably die. The old yellow bitch stares at the woods, listening to the pack, the bark, the howls. She trembles and strains, pacing the edge of the cleared field, but she won't go to them. We are the ones who feed her. The naming of the body. I was a good child. I waited and I listened and I learned about the nature of things. The way the male box turtle's plastrum is cupped, the fork in the shell above its thicker tail. Modifications so he could fit, so he could mate. Modifications so he could fit, so he could mate without rocking away. I thought that there'd be a change. At some point I would grow and change to be a man, to take my place with a wife. When I asked my mother at 5 what my name would be when I would be changed, she cried, and now I know I will die in this body. This is a translation of Lorca, with whom I've been in love for a long time. And sometimes the only way that you can get a poem close enough to you, like that old W.C. Fields joke, hold me closer, closer, closer. If I hold you any closer, I'll be on the other side of you. So translating Lorca's poetry, even though it might not be a great service to the poetic canon, gives me a wonderful feeling of closeness, and I hope is in some ways my own. Song of the Bear and Orange Tree. Woodcutter, cut my shadow from me. Free me from the torment of seeing myself over and over without fruit. Why was I born among mirrors? The day walks in circles around me, and the night copies me in all its stars. I want to live without seeing myself, and I will dream that ants and thistle burrs are my leaves and my birds. Woodcutter, cut my shadow from me. Free me from the torment of seeing myself without fruit. Just one note, and that is that Luna moths are imagos, and they're born with no mouths, and they mate, and then die with never having eaten. Luna moths. Aaron loves these fragile creatures, bruising themselves on our bay window. I leave the lamp on near the window to draw them, to please her, to save her guilt of having entranced them, these mouthless imagos that only live long enough after emergence to mate. They fling themselves over and over into the glass, and she watches. We are starving, these moths and I, pulled, pummeled with need, unable to escape the promise of the light. We butt the glass over and over. Here is where this poem should turn toward love. This isn't about love. This is a trick of biology, of phantom hormones. When she told me she was ovulating, I drove home to bang myself against her, obeying the imperatives, the raging and clanging echoes of work that I can never do. How long do they live like this? Mouthless and hungry. How long to starve? Tick. I'm starving a tick in a sandwich bag. Honest tick, cinnamon brown, living still off its last meal of me. Day 7 and the legs retract smartly when I touch the bag. The dog and I take bets on its day of demise, and it controls us, playing dead, twittering its legs, spasms calculated to throw us off. In response, I hang the bag in the window, a sun catcher, throwing a giant tick shadow on the office wall. It crawls up to the ceiling as the sun sets. This poem is part of a longer sequence. It is about being a volunteer during the AIDS crisis. Many gays and lesbians would go and sit with people who had no one to be with them during their last days in hospice. And at this point in my life, I was very naive and didn't know very much about it. So hopefully this reflects a bit of that. It also feels so similar to what I've heard went on in hospitals during the time of COVID. Antecedent. 12 hours after he died, we cleaned up, not waiting for anyone in the family. It was miscellany, really, left on the bureau top, pocket contents, and a tiny Bible, its filmy pages ringed with red. We move on down the hall. Someone must stand by another client with no one watching. It's not my turn. We all keep track of the roster and take our places without reminding, showing up for death in the same way that as a server, I sang birthday wishes for my tables. The time clock next to the window overlooking the parking lot thunks a little louder on the hour. The dry cleaner opens, the sodium vapor lights still yellow the mist on the glass, and morning traffic slows, then stops. Already. At the edge of imagination, between the thermoclines and the worst of the current, a hippo stands for a riverbed. Her eyes are half open in the caramel light, and her lashes move with the water. The sun is ringed with red, and Nile crocodiles wake the surface as they slide deliberately enough to be hunting. They need meat, and will find it as surely as a splinter seeks the bone. The turning of the earth doesn't splash water from the river. Even when the moon is pulling at it, the crocodiles don't begrudge the hippo its meat, but they would partake if they were able. Eventually, even the bed gives up its own. Eventually, the splinter finds the bone. And in the eternity between the hours, heavier thunk, and the card stamping the end of the shift, absolutely nothing happens. Offerings. Today, I made a list of everything I would cut off if you could stay. Tiny offerings of flesh, gibbets of gristle, earlobe, nipple, pinky, hand. I could cut them off with the pruners if I took them off from the right side. I would whittle myself away for just a bit more of you, for just a shadow of a promise, for just that promise. Prayer. Make me stone. Fill my lungs with earth, my stomach with water. Make me the pit of the fruit that breaks teeth. God, grant me not peace. Let me be your vessel of rage, of claw, of fang. Thank you so much for your attention.